Here is a helpful video for anyone who is trying to figure out how far or how bad your floor or your ceiling is sagging, with the understanding that you might not be thinking quite clearly about these measurements. For example, if everything is nice and straight, the ceiling and the floor, then you should be able to measure anywhere in this area. But more than likely, that's not going to be the case. For example, if your ceiling is sagging and you have a wood-framed floor, then there's a very good chance that your wood-framed floor will also be sagging. Now, if you have a concrete foundation, then don't assume that it's always going to be flat and level. You could have one section or multiple sections of that sagging, or even a section that is raised up from a tree that might have grown or is still growing with the roots underneath the foundation, something raising it up in one section and maybe even some soil erosion lowering it on the other side. Now, one of the biggest problems you're going to run into will be when they are both sagging and you're trying to get a measurement by just simply measuring off of the floor. For example, both of these floors are identical and they have a 3-inch sag in the center. And that means I'm going to have the same measurement here as I'm going to have here. Or you might have a situation where you have an 8-foot measurement here at the corner and a 7-foot 11 measurement from here to here, suggesting that you have a 1-inch sag in the ceiling, when in reality, that sag is going to be a little bit more. So hopefully that makes sense, because that's the main point I want to drive home in this video. And I think the best way to figure out if you don't have a laser level, if you do have a laser level, feel free to place it in any spot in the room and turn it on. And then just simply start measuring a few areas and writing them down on a piece of paper to figure out how much the floor or the ceiling might be sagging. However, if you don't want to purchase a laser level, you're never going to use it again, then you can go ahead and add a few more level lines all the way around the room, or a level line on this side and a level line on this side, but they need to be level. For example, if this is off a 1/2 inch in either direction, then your measurements are going to be off a little bit. And even though I'm going to be providing you with an example of how you can use a couple of straight boards and simply screw them into the wall and mess up the interior finish of the drywall or the plaster, that might not work for you. And if that's the case, just simply grab some tape, put it on the walls, make some marks, and then have one person hold the string at one end and someone else hold the string at the other end. If not, you can drive some screws into the top of it and then simply tie a string at one end and then pull it tight to create a straight line to connect to the other end. And here's the title to that video. And once you have a tight level line, you can simply measure from the bottom of the floor to the line in a variety of different sections, or you can measure from the bottom of the ceiling to the line. And if done correctly, then you should come up with some extremely accurate measurements as to whether or not your floor or your ceiling or both of them are sagging. And I will be providing you with 2 more videos, one on how to make a water level, and the other will be on how to use the water level to create accurate lines around the perimeter of your rooms or your entire house to figure out if you have other problem areas in your home that might be either raising or sinking. So make sure you stick around and watch those videos. In this video, I will be providing you with a simple and easy method to see if your floor foundation or subfloor framing is not level, out of level. And it's not uncommon to have one section of the home sink into the soil through a variety of different reasons and create problems with your windows and your doors. And in some cases, even you could find yourself leveling your cabinets, TVs, stuff like that. So not a good thing. So first thing we're going to want to do is find a central location. And this isn't necessary, just something I like to do. So we will select this area right here. The next step will be to attach one end of the water level to the central location. And that can be done by a variety of different things. Tape, just tape it to the wall. drive a screw or a nail through the edge here. Do not block either side of the water level off. It needs the air to go through to make it work. Then you'll need to make a mark somewhere. And this will be, we'll just refer to it as our main leveling mark. And I think I made this about 2 foot off the ground. Wouldn't be a bad idea to make them in equal measurements of feet, because you will be adding and subtracting measurements here. So go with a nice even number, something like 30 inches, 36 inches, something like that. I mean, 30 inches or 20 inches would be fine, or 2 feet or 3 feet, and we can go from there. So our measurement here will just say is 2 feet off of the floor, and one end of the water level is attached to the wall. And you can always have one person hold up one end of it. One person hold one end up, another person hold the other end up, and then someone else goes through and makes all of the marks. That would work just fine as long as the level does not move. If you have somebody holding it up against the wall and then you make your mark and they move it a little bit, that could be a problem with your finished measurements. Well, let's go ahead and go to the other end, make our mark, and then we will go back and then have the same mark. And I'm giving you an idea here. Let's just go back. And we can see that the mark is even with the water, but it is not even with the mark that we made here. That's because we will need to measure this distance and then transfer it to the other side, and then make our main level mark here. And wanted to show you where the water would be, kind of an idea in your water level. This is the water is being level in the tube, and of course that's where our mark is, but not our main mark. Our leveling mark, I should say, is there. Give you an idea what it looks like on the other side, and that's what it looks like there. Let's go ahead and go to another corner of the house. Again, it will be attached to the central location here, and then of course this one here we will move to the other side. Same thing, just kind of running through it again. We got our main mark, and this mark might be in a different location. You're not gonna, these marks aren't always going to be the same, but you will simply, this is the main mark you're looking for. You'll just simply measure the distance here on all of them. So the last one was 6.5 inches. This one here could be 8 inches. It could be 3 inches, but you'll need to transfer the marks to the other side. That will be the main thing. Let's go ahead and go through the doorway here, just kind of showing you how you can go through the house. Again, this will be attached or secured somehow so that you can get your level mark and then make it on the wall framing stud. Go back to the other side and then measure the distance. So we'll pretend like this is 5 inches here. Shoot back over to the other side. 5 inches, draw a line, and now we have our main level mark again. Now this is where we can measure to see how far the floor is out of whack. So we're going to measure from our main leveling mark to the top of the floor. Top of the floor, main leveling mark. We are not going to be using these marks here. I mean, you can actually use these marks and not do this. You could just be measuring from here down to the floor, but sometimes that gets confusing, especially if you're going to be working on the project for a couple months. It's nice to have these measurements instead of a variety of different ones. It could get a little confusing. And then we simply go back to the other side and measure the distance here and then subtract it, and that will give us our difference. Let's go ahead and do a sample measurement here. Top of the floor, which is B. The main leveling line is A. We are going to pretend like this is 24 inches. Top of the floor to our main line. Let's head over to our corner. And if this measurement is 24 inches, then your building is level. Now this is where it gets a little confusing. If this measurement is taller, Let's say it's 25 inches. That means that this section is lower than the other section. If this measurement is less than 24 inches, then that means that this measurement or this section is higher than the other side where the water level is. So I hope that makes sense. Now that you have all of that stuff locked away in your brain, let's just go ahead and go over this again. This would be the first one we did. This would be the second one. You can do it throughout the entire house. You can go to the corners here of your doors, make marks on the walls, in the closets, and run these tubes all over the place, just kind of give you an idea. Run them through the doorways. You can check the all over the house, any measurement you need. Now, if you are coming to a spot, let's say that your house is 100 foot long and you bought 50 foot of tubing, you can always take and run 50 foot of tubing to the furthest point or to any point, and then run it from that area to the other points also. So once you have your main water level marks, you can move the hose if needed and travel through other parts of the house and make your mark. So I hope this makes sense. This is how you would figure it out, by going on the inside of the house. I am going to try and make a video to give you some ideas on how you would do it on the outside of the house, but this is probably going to be the best method. The outside of the house might not work because your doors and windows might not be the same height. You know, you could do it from your roof rafters, maybe measuring down, but if there are any measurements that are off a little bit, then it could create problems for you. So inside of the house, I think, is going to be better. This is actually what I would do if the walls were covered with stucco or siding, some type of finish. If you're dealing with the framing, you have all the exterior of the house removed, then by all means go to the outside and do this. And this really does work good. I can't really think of, I've checked this before with builders levels, transits, and actually used water levels to check the transits to see if they were right, instead of taking them in and getting recalibrated, or to see if they needed to be recalibrated. You will need to start with some clear plastic tubing, and then that will need to be filled up with water to make your water level. So let's go ahead and get a garden hose going here, and simply insert the tubing into the hose, or wrap your hand around it somehow to get the water pumping in there. And you will see all of the air bubbles flowing through there. Plenty of air bubbles. We do not want air bubbles in our water level. So after you get a little bit of water in the bucket, wouldn't be a bad idea to submerge it into the bucket. It wouldn't be. You can grab both ends there. And you can see water coming out. But you're going to want to submerge the hose and the tubing in the water to make sure that no air is getting in. Sometimes if you just hold it together, you're going to get air sucked in there. But if you put it under the water, good chance no air is going to get in there. I'm looking for the other end of the tube right now to show you. There we go. Plenty of water. No air bubbles coming out of there. Now we can get started with our temporary setup there. If you pull out one end of the tubing, the water is going to just continue to leak back into the bucket. So stick that back in there to get the water back in it, and then grab both ends together and try and keep them even or level, however we look at it there. And then we will attach it to whatever we are going to level. And in this case, it is just going to be our temporary setup. So I have it tied on with a string. I'm going to make a mark where the water is even, or you can see it right there in the tubing. And then I'm going to mark the other side. You can see it, really get a good view of it right there where the water is. And this would be level. And when I say level, I would imagine water is level, you have to imagine. If we go around the planet Earth, it's not going to be as level as it would be just a few feet away like we're working on here. But all you need to do now is simply measure. You can see there we're about 1.3/8 inches. And again, I don't know how flat this board is. It looks like a rough sawn piece of lumber. Should have used a smooth one. There we're a little bit over 1.5 inches. Just in between 1.5 inches and 1.3/8 inches. But if you're going to level a floor, simply measure down, and you can see here we're about 32 3/4, just a little bit under 32 3/4. Measure the other side. There's the star of our show, a little hoodlum that came in the neighborhood. And then you can see here we're a little bit under 32 3/4 also. So this is even Steven. If we look at this right here, we are right on the money. And that is how a water level works. Now, what if I measured it and it was off a little bit? Let's say that the measurement on the right was 30 inches and the measurement on the left was 31 inches. This would represent a sloping direction towards the larger number. The 31-inch number would represent something deeper. And so the bigger number would represent something lower. The smaller number would represent something higher, according to the way I'm measuring it. If you change directions and you measure up, then you will have to reverse those numbers. But for down, if you're measuring down like this, then that should work out just fine. And thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out some of our other videos on YouTube. And if you can't find the videos on YouTube, make sure that you visit our website to find a complete organized list of all of the videos we've made so far.